What is going on, my Carp Nation? I am BobZeBattleDroid, and I am here with my very first ever Trainer Tip Tuesday, where I will explain various parts of the competitive trading card game to new players. This episode, I will be explaining what a playstyle is, why it is so important to know what a playstyle is, and how to play to your own playstyle in the trading card game. The term playstyle is a term that newer players might hear occasionally, whether it's on a live stream on Twitch or sometimes through videos similar to what I make here on my own channel, whether it's on the PTCGO and some other channels or some more live matches that I make again here on my channel. Even though that players might hear these terms thrown around rather occasionally, it's difficult for them to pick up on what it really means at all, because the language is kind of a thing that players kind of have to be explained to. A newer player might not understand definitions and terms that, players that have been in the game for a long time understand. Simply put, a playstyle is the way in which a deck plays the game of Pokemon. It can also describe types of decks that a player prefers running, but also keep in mind that the good players out there, the really great players, play to whatever deck they think is going to give them the win. Whatever deck they think is the best for the current metagame. Again, that is something I will be talking about in these videos. They play whatever they think they can win with and whatever they feel comfortable with too. If you do not know how to currently play the Pokemon trading card game, I've linked a couple of videos from some other popular PokéTubers, which is people that make Pokemon videos on YouTube. So just checking one of those out either before or after you watch this video to help you understand how to play it all, as this video is kind of pointless if you don't know how to play the game of Pokemon. But without further ado, let's get straight into talking about the various different types of playstyles that there are. There are generally 4 different playstyles that are commonly thought about when someone mentions a playstyle. They are as followed. Speed decks, typically fast hitting, typically don't deal as much damage as some other decks. Setup decks. Setup decks are pretty much the opposite of what a speed deck would be. They usually try to control a game until they can actually get some of their beefier Pokemon to swing in later in the end of the game where they can deal some massive amounts of damage. There's also control decks, lock decks, a lot of different names for them. These are decks that try to actually prevent your opponent from playing a certain part of the game. And the fourth and final deck that is sometimes thought about is either sometimes called a deck out deck or a mill deck, which is more likely to be called that. Most decks have a playstyle revolving around the first win condition, which is taking all of your prize cards. The second most common way to win the game is probably through a deck out, and that is where a mill deck actually can thrive. There is a third way, again, of winning, and that is when all of the Pokemon in play are gone, essentially, on the opponent's side of the field. You can win that way as well. Now, Pokemon really doesn't like to make a deck or allow cards really to win this way, although it is sometimes possible that a setup, or rather a speed deck, can win through this win condition if they get a good start. Their opponent doesn't have anything and they don't have any Pokemon out, maybe the only one in the active, and maybe a speed deck could win a match here and there for that. But Pokemon doesn't like to make cards specifically designed to do this, because it just doesn't make the game a fun, competitive match that it should be. I mean, seriously, I don't blame Pokemon. I wouldn't want to fight a Shiftry deck and not even play a single card and not even have a turn at all. Personally, my favorite playstyle is either a speed deck or lock decks. I'll cover these two first just because they're my favorite, so I'll do that. Speed decks are fairly common in the current format. On the upload of this video, which will be sometime in August of 2016, the current format will be from XY all the way to Steam Siege, and if you're watching this a month or so after, either September from there on out, the current format's going to be from Primal Clash to Steam Siege, and then from other sets that currently get released after Steam Siege until the next rotation happens again. Speed decks run cards like Trainer's Mail and Acrobike, sometimes Battle Compressor, to help set up really quickly. These cards give them a better chance of drawing those good cards to help them set up. They also allow them to sometimes discard cards quickly if they need to. Battle Compressor is a big part of Night March because they need to get Nitro Marchers in the discard pile, and helping them set up early is a big part of discarding cards. Sometimes speed decks will run some assistant Pokemon to assist them to sometimes help with some lackluster damage output. Although, keep in mind, Night March is a very big exception. A very big exception. Some examples of speed decks include Night March, Mega Manectric EX. Again, this is very dependent on the build. Some decks sometimes run Target Whistle and just try to get Shaman, which I would consider a speed deck because it's the quickest way to win a game if you're playing Mega Manectric. And Mega Rayquaza, which is probably the second most common speed deck if you don't think of Night March. If you like spending 10 minutes on the first turn, I mean, I don't think speed decks would be a bad choice for you. No, seriously, 10 minutes. I wonder what this guy is thinking. After this game, I probably should go to the grocery store. Are you kidding me? Another Battle Compressor? Lock decks, sometimes called troll decks, have an interesting taste to them. They pretty much prevent your opponent from playing supporters, items, tools, special energy, or stadium cards. Just that. So pretty much preventing their deck to function. Just pick one or a few of these things and you've got yourself a lock deck. Lock decks are typically quick to get their locks going so they can have a chance of winning. They don't have a whole lot of damage output, and so they have to get their locks going quickly to prevent their opponent from setting up and then blowing them away. It's almost a necessity that lock decks get going quickly. The hope of running a lock deck is that you'll be able to slow the pace of game eventually to wear down your opponent and just take the prizes slowly. Therefore, lock decks run a plethora of items to help increase the damage output, and only lock decks can largely exist in a metagame where there are plenty of stall item cards to help them slow down the pace of the game. Some recent lock decks are Trevenant Break, Vespiquen Vileplume, and the dreaded setup decks are not necessarily my favorite decks, but occasionally I will play one. Most recently, my Mega Alakazam EX deck is a setup deck. There are pretty much two ways that setup decks can function. The first and most common setup is through Pokemon abilities and items typically manipulate energy to charge up various attacks. For example, Primal Kyogre is a Pokemon card that we can use to charge up other Pokemon cards such as Suicune or Articuno to sweep for a late game prize. Another example of this would be Mega Manectric to sometimes charge up a Raikou. Sometimes it's been used to charge up Trevenant Break. It's been really used to charge up pretty much everything. And even in Japan, it's been used to charge up Ho-Ho EX. I don't know. It's good there, I guess. The other way of using a setup deck is eventually stalling so you can, over time, charge up a big heavy attacker and then just start taking prizes like crazy. Most common, they're going to run some kind of max count of a Pokemon or something that's going to help them stall. Most notably and most recently, a setup deck that functioned like this is probably Primal Kyogre that was able to stall with Wobbuffet to prevent your opponent from playing Shamans and other cards to help them set up, and then also using Robo-Subs to, help them get a Primal Kyogre charged up, and then it could just start taking pretty much every prize it needed to. Finally, and a very interesting playstyle is a deck out. Every once in a while, there are enough disruption or stalling cards in a format that can be paired with the right Pokemon. As stated before, deck out decks are an attempt to win by getting cards from your opponent's deck into their discard pile until they have no cards left to draw. Some somewhat recent decks with this playstyle is Durant and Bunnelby, and the infamous Wailord EX deck that didn't even attack. Some people considered it more annoying than Seismitoad EX, and that's a pretty big leap. Deck out decks typically are not all that competitive and typically have, the greatest weapon of surprise. But if you're looking for a good fun deck to play, I would suggest checking out a deck out deck. Excluding Wailord. That's just no. No. No! So what is the purpose of learning about playstyles? Right now it seems like I'm just telling a bunch of Pokemon language that really isn't all that helpful for building a competitive deck. But the reason I went over all these playstyles is for one reason. It's just a lack of focus, and that would be a lack of a playstyle. And while the intro decks at Target are a great way to learn the game, it isn't the best skeleton. And I'm not criticizing you, Pokemon. I think it's a great, fun way for younger kids to get into the game and learn the game. It just doesn't have any focus or that good of a setup or even a skeleton or anything. And that's where I will leave this video. Next episode, I get to rip on some Pokemon starter decks.